What's poppin', everybody? This is the cartoon kid Ray Rawlins, and it's Friday, so y'all know what that means, man. It's time for a classic SpongeBob review, and we're going all the way back to season one, episode three. We're reviewing the second half, and it's called Plankton. Now, a true OG SpongeBob fan knows what this episode is all about, but for those who, for some whatever reason, do not, we got Mr. Alex Payne here to give us that episode breakdown before we start breaking it down. What happens?
Well, this is the first episode that they have Plankton in, and I honestly think it's a great first episode. The episode follows him trying to steal a Krabby Patty as the usual, and Mr. Krabs stops him, and he meets SpongeBob for the first time, and he tries to become friends with SpongeBob to try get him to give him the formula, but SpongeBob says no, so Plankton goes and gets this mind control device, climbs inside of SpongeBob and controls his body. Now, my first thought I'll say on this, right, is I think the only other episode that comes close or matches maybe a little bit better the atmosphere of this episode is the friggin' SB129. Because
Really?
I feel like this episode has really great atmosphere and feeling. Like the music, I feel like the music in this episode is different from all the other ones and shit. Like
Oh, yeah, most definitely.
it just has a nice, even from like the start, it just has a nice dark feel and tone, which I think is very appropriate.
Of
Um,
course, yeah. Go ahead.
well, no, what's your first thought? Because I was ahead in the moments, but you didn't say yours yet.
Okay. My whole thing with this is that Plankton, like you said, is obviously the supervillain of the series. So it kind of surprised me. Like, we hear this song, and I'm like, yo, I forgot. Because I seen this episode, believe it or not. I want to say no later than 2 weeks when I first started watching SpongeBob. I was kind of started watching around like maybe early 2007 for sure. And man, once I found out SpongeBob and I fell in love with the series, I was watching that shit all the time. Every single time it came out on Nickelodeon, ooh, SpongeBob's on, SpongeBob's on. So I was motherfucking little as hell watching that shit. And it had to be in like my first week I seen this episode. And I'm like, yo, man, Plankton, get out of here. And he is a villain. Okay, he is a villain. I'm like, oh, so this is the guy that my brother was talking about because he was a big SpongeBob fan too. Um, and long story short, this is a motherfucking classic from both of our childhoods. And I'm a big nostalgic person. It's like when I saw this, it's like, damn, I remember this shit. Plankton's music, though, that freaking theme song, I love it. And it kind of is disappointing that I honestly think that's the only episode they used that music in. I don't remember any other episodes they used that music. But if anything, that should have been Plankton's little song right there. If anyone's deserving of a theme song, that's motherfucking Plankton's music right there. Atmosphere and shit, like you said, is different. The feel is different than any other episode for sure. Um, but with all that being said, I'm gonna let you go on into your moments. So, what are some of your standout moments of this episode?
A standout moment for me, not because of the comedy necessarily, but because of like I guess the way it shows character is SpongeBob, when Plankton tries to influence SpongeBob on outside, when he's outside and shit, and he's like, oh, aren't we friends? And he's like, no, acquaintances, no. Like, what I'm saying is back in those days, and SpongeBob was just a regular guy, maybe a little bit naive, but he was just a regular. To go back to the references to SpongeBob being childish, on the episode Monday, is like he was just a normal guy. Maybe not the brightest light bulb, but he was a normal, average guy. Like he didn't
I
want
was
to be
thinking the
friends
same
with
thing.
everyone and all this other shit. Like he just was, being him and doing him. But
Right.
my listen, my f- th- my favorite joke of SpongeBob, the entire series, best joke to me, is when friggin' Plankton standing on his pillow and he's like, I'll get that Krabby Patty. Pulls his record player and puts it on, expecting the evil music, and then you hear, learn about the letters A, B, C. That shit is my favorite joke of the entire series. I do not know why, but that shit just kills me every time. Learn
I gotta.
about the alphabet A, B, C. That shit just freaking murders me. Like, that is my favorite joke of the entire series.
And then he has to change the record. I'm like, yo,
Yeah.
when were you listening to this? As soon as you got to this house. And I gotta say this too. One of the things that I thought, it was like, yo, it has to be no later than freaking 1999, if not 2000 when this came out. It's like, man, are you that motherfucking ancient that you're using a record player? I think this is a time where CD players were coming around. You should at least had a CD player, yo. I don't know. You could have done something with that. A
I mean,
freaking
I
record
think that
player, bro?
goes up. I think that goes up with the aesthetic. And listen,
Uh-huh.
that wasn't even a record player. That was one of them old crank things. I think it's called a gramophone.
Man, we young people over here, man. We in our 20s. We don't know nothing about this motherfucking antique shit. So once we get an old ass person like 2 more bottles in this motherfucker, hey, we can start talking about some shit. But we don't know shit about no record players, no gramophones. If he didn't say no record player, I'm like, what the fuck is that? But
But
anyway,
no,
go
but
ahead,
like
continue.
it's funny because I always see this joke and I'm always like, what the hell does that even mean? And I I'm disappointed in myself that it took me as long as it did to get the joke when he was walking SpongeBob into his lab and he was like, "This is my lab," and then the show is like the dog on the screen and start barking and shit. And like
Oh yeah,
the joke never dawned on me that that's a
a
Labrador.
Labrador.
Like, yeah, like that never. I always wondered like I don't get it.
As a kid, yeah, because I thought the same thing. I'm like, lab and lab, aren't those the same thing? And you know what? Funny thing is, obviously, I got to make a small mention of this. We don't see that lab any other episodes. Who knows? Did he serve him up in some chum? Who knows, man? I don't know.
I mean,
But
listen, it was just a passing joke and a good one, like a
obviously,
nice,
yeah,
good
yeah, yeah.
one at that. But I just, I just saying that, like, I'm surprised it took me as long as it did to get that joke. Now, we definitely got to mention when Plankton absolutely roasts Squidward. Now, first of all, I just want to say we're just gonna, ignore and breeze past the fact that Squidward's bedroom is on the first floor. We're just gonna ignore that. Just gonna pretend like that isn't that that didn't happen.
Actually, no,
But
it's on the second floor, ain't it?
it is. But in this episode, it wasn't because remember he walked through a wall and then walked through the other side, with his
Right.
bedroom being on the first floor. So that's what I'm saying. Let's just pretend like that isn't the case. Let's just ignore that. But he he basically told him in the most elegant, wordy, and gangster way possible that his music is not worth shit. Literally, he says your creations are worth less than the protozoa's waste.
He just shitted all over his life. Plankton was a gangster in this episode, man. He freaking hijacked SpongeBob's mind. You
Shut
gotta
your
mention,
mouth, you mediocre clarinet player.
listen, Plankton went straight savage beast mode on his ass. You gotta mention the moment too where he's in SpongeBob's head, and like I said, he's straight gangster for doing that. By the way, you don't see any elaborate ass plans from Plankton like that no more. Um, but he's in SpongeBob's head, and the brain is just freaking mowing his ass down. Just bloop,
You
bloop.
come back here, you swine.
And obviously, another one of my moments because you mentioned the Squidward one. I'm gonna say is that nearing the end when obviously Plankton always comes so close. Some episodes he comes so damn close to getting that formula, but he always ends up screwing up. And in this episode, which you can arguably say it's kind of like the not Crabborg episode, but the Imitation Krabs episode where he creates a robot version of Mr. Krabs. So damn close to getting the formula, but he ends up screwing up. This episode, he ends up jumping out of SpongeBob's head into his little condenser or whatever you want to call it. And, he loses control of SpongeBob. SpongeBob walks away with the Krabby Patty. Had him in his lab and everything. All he had to do was put the Krabby Patty in. In the Imitation Krabs episode, he basically has the formula in his hand. Okay, he's able to walk out with the damn formula. Or he would have been able to, rather. And then Mr. Krabs already taken care of, already sent off. and he basically hits a self-destruct button in his robot suit. Obviously, it's cartoon logic. You can't have the villain win, so you have him screw up by some dumb way. And it's just like, man, Plankton, you're supposed to be this college-educated dude. You think you will stop slipping up eventually.
I went to college.
And he doesn't mention that anymore. That was one of his freaking number one lines. I went to college. And that's why I know that. I'm like, yo, he doesn't.
He mentioned that in the Karen's Baby episode, I think.
Did he really? I mean, he mentioned it, but he doesn't say it like he usually said. I went to college. That's always been his freaking line before you end up getting, defeated, basically. He doesn't say that anymore in this episode or any of the modern ones. I want to say he said that he used that a few times in the classic episodes. But small little thing. Let's get into positive and negatives. What do you got?
Well, I think I have to say this is honestly my favorite episode of SpongeBob, I think.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I know I can't even say that because it's a really great episode, but
no, it is. It is.
I think this might be my favorite episode of SpongeBob. Like, I think the atmosphere is on point. I like that. The jokes are hilarious. Again, my favorite joke of the entire series: letters of the alphabet ABC. So, like, positives: comedy on point, story on point, nice character development, nice way to show off a villain, and just overall, just greatness, great character development, just everything. Now, if I had to give a negative about the episode, I'd say my negative would be that I feel like it could have ended better. Like, I don't think the ending was that great. Like, it could have, they could have just did something a little different than what they did. But
no, of course.
That's just my, that's the only negative I have. I'll give this episode, I want to give it an 8.5.
Ooh.
But I think that's a bit too extreme. So I'm going to hit it with an 8.
Okay. Fair enough. Like you said, with me personally, and I wanted to say this in Monday's review, but it slipped my mind. Like, in this episode and even Monday's, you can see they can fit a lot in, like, maybe 8 to 10 to probably, I say 15 minutes. Whatever their time limit is on these episodes, I say it's no more than like 11 minutes.
11.
Yeah. So they can fit a lot in this time for an episode. Like you said, story-wise, they accomplished the whole introduction of Plankton. You see him steal the formula or whatnot, or at least attempts to in the beginning, gets sent away, he tries to befriend SpongeBob, and straight up hijacked his mind like a straight-up gangster. And obviously, you accomplish a lot in this episode, like they did in Karen's Virus, which honestly makes any type of person feel like, oh man, this is a very full episode. They didn't waste 11 minutes of their life. They saw a lot. They were entertained for that good 11 minutes. Overall, like you said, story was on point. Good introduction for Plankton. Have him look like a straight up boss. Have him look like a villain who honestly should be hard to beat. But he ends up, like I mentioned earlier, always screwing himself over. Like in this episode, he jumped out of SpongeBob's head, got way too excited, and lost control of SpongeBob, and who ends up walking off with the Krabby Patty as he ends up being analyzed. But overall, like you said, the only negative in this episode is the ending. As far as everything else was on point. Music, the total atmosphere, the feel of the episode, obviously on point. There's no episode that feels anything like it. It's kind of a shame, like I said earlier, that they don't use the Plankton music a lot more often. Like, that should be his little song now. Like, they never use that again, as far as I know. But I will say this. Overall, damn good episode. Better than, I say, one of the best classic episodes out there. It definitely has some competition. It's not my personal favorite as it is yours, but it's definitely a good classic episode of SpongeBob for sure. It's one true OG SpongeBob fans will always remember and will always watch as soon as it comes on TV. And like you, I'll hit this with a nice 7.5. 7.5 out of 10. Very good episode. Not bad in the slightest. I say there's no feel. Only thing about this episode that like you said, is a negative is the ending. But Plankton has been known for all his screw ups and whatnot. I just thought of another one. where he basically ends up freezing the entire Krusty Krab, and he's playing with Mr. Krabs' thermostat, and he falls off into the water, and then Mr. Krabs freezes him. So, Plankton's been known to screw up a lot on these big, I guess you could say pay-per-view events, if you want to call it that. All these high-stakes events, he always ends up screwing up. So I guess that's a little joke on him, or that's a little, thing that they want to set forth. But hey, either way, man, it's a good introduction for any character with Plankton and whatnot. And it's good to see some classic SpongeBob, man. He's not a total, pushover. Plankton wants to be friends with him. He's like, nah, man, I ain't fucking with you, man. But overall, I give this episode a 7.5 out of 10. And my buddy Alex Payne here gives it a nice 8 out of 10, man. I'm the cartoon kid, Ray Rawlins, and this is the Cartoon Kid channel where we talk cartoons and we do it daily, baby. And this has been our review for Season 1, Episode 3, Part 2 of SpongeBob called Plankton. As always, man, hop down in the comments box down below and tell us what you think about this episode. Tell us if you like it, tell us if you hate it, and tell us if you have any other ideas or any recommendations on episodes of SpongeBob to review for either the classic or modern SpongeBob reviews, man. But until then, we will see you when we see you. Peace out, everybody.